Yo, JD here. And as you can see by the title of this video, we are going to be discussing something quite present among the F1 community in the past 24 hours. And that is the topic of equal cars, and specifically how different equal cars have different tyre wear. And you can see these are a few people's takes, whether you want to agree with them or not, on Twitter. But I thought, why not actually go ahead and test this? This is something I like to do with current patches and things that people discuss within the community. So that's exactly what we are going to be doing here today. So I will be putting timestamps in the video, so if you'd like to skip ahead and look at the final results. But equal cars, the differences between them is not something that has only just turned up. That's something that's been present for the last 10 years. I remember, if anyone remembers, playing the 2013 game, the Lotus at the start of the game was incredibly OP. Same for the Sauber in F1 2012. There's been no shortage of that. And a lot of the time, it's because of different wheelbases and the different lengths. So long wheelbase cars or short wheelbase cars. Although the programming physics are the same for every car, because of the differences in kind of the dimensions of them, does actually have a bit of a different effect. And in this case, it seems to be the Ferrari powered cars that are being affected the most. So in this little test, I decided to do Hungary 10 laps. I put on a Hungary TT setup, and I'm making sure I'm running exactly the same setup between the Red Bull, which statistically and what people have tested is the car that has the best tyre wear, versus the Ferrari, which has the worst tyre wear. And this is quite a significant thing. And the differences you might think are not that great, but especially in the hands of an F1 esports driver, or just really any driver as well, these differences will add up. And it's enough of a difference where this game is really quite OP in terms of you have the fresher tyres. If you have tyre wear towards the end of a stint where you could pretty much go an extra lap, or you could afford to pit earlier and have the same tyre wear as someone else, then that's really going to swing in your favour quite a bit. And we will also be focusing on the lap times. I felt like this test I wasn't using the ERS at all, so we're going to be showing the first 2 laps of both cars that I tested. And I felt like both runs were pretty equal, no real mistakes. As I said, not using the ERS, exactly the same setup. Put the AI to 70, collisions off, just so I could really focus on what I want to be doing. And it wasn't just the tyre wear, it was also just the feeling of the car, and the lap times really did reflect that as well. There was actually quite a big difference between them, and I didn't just do this once, I did this 2 or 3 times with both cars, and the results were very similar. So if you want to go ahead and try this yourself at another track, or this exact test I'm doing, please let me know what your thoughts are with this, and what your thoughts are on this even happening, because right now it's, especially in the world of esports or competition, just league racing, people are going to be at a huge unfair disadvantage, and there's nothing you can do right now, unless there is nothing you can do right now unless you do like an F2 league or something like that. But see, coming towards the end of my second lap in the Red Bull, we did 22.5 on the first one, and coming across the line, this was an 18.2, which I was pretty content with. But if we go ahead and skip through the laps now, 18.2, the next lap 18.6, so the tyres will drop off. It was really from lap 6 onwards where it really did hit the cliff. So 18.5, and we're still in the 18, so 18.9, so the drop off isn't too bad. To see 50% tyre wear at this stage, so it seems to be about 3% tyre wear. 19.1, so losing about a couple attempts a lap at this stage. Moving towards the end of lap 6, lap 7, this is where really the main drop off did start to happen. So 19.4, 23% tyre wear, and the highest tyre, it seems to be the left front or left side of the car that's being affected the most. And now it's a 20.1, so quite a big drop off after lap 7. And then coming towards the end of lap 8, what's this going to be? It's a 20.1 last lap, that's a 20.2, so kind of leveling it out at this stage. And as we come into the final lap. So I'm only going to do 10 laps here. So the tyres are on 34%, 32% for the right rear. Now it's just gone up to 33. But finishing this test in the Red Bull, we finish off with a 20.3 and 35% tyre wear as the highest wear on each tyre. So yeah, that is the Red Bull test. And we're also going to look at the race director to also look at the lap times, because that's obviously going to be quite significant. So normally if you're going faster, you would be generating a bit more wear in the tyre, and you can see we will be doing a little bit of comparison at the end of this video. But those were the 10 laps, and yeah, I felt like that was a fairly decent run. But now we are going to do exactly the same thing with the Ferrari, so exactly the same setup. Gonna make sure I lower these tire pressures, because I was running minimum pressures on the Red Bull as well, and we're going to do exactly the same thing. So we're going to showcase the first 2 laps, and then we're going to go lap by lap, comparing the different wear and the times, and do a little bit of a conclusion at the end. So yeah, felt like I drove just as well in this one as well. And yeah, I don't know, my only explanation has to be with the wheelbase, the different lengths of the wheelbase, and it definitely did seem to be the case on previous games as well, depending on the engine manufacturer, or yeah, if it's a short or long wheelbase, that does affect the physics of the car, and it isn't placebo. There, like I said, if you played F1 2013 or 2012, or even if you go back to 2011 in the HRT, or I think it might be 2010, the HRT, if I'm not mistaken, that was pretty insane, along with the Williams. And I think there's always been these little differences, but now the tyre wear is being affected. Now that's quite a big deal, and the more laps you do, the more of an effect it's actually going to have. It's going to have a bit of a compounding effect. So in the 5-lap races and 10-lap races, it won't really maybe do too much of a difference, but when you're doing a 50% league race or an esports race, if you're having 2% or 3% or more worse tyre wear than someone after that 10 laps, then actually could make a big difference. And we know in esports that even half a tenth can make a world of difference. So the first lap here is a 23.2, so that's 7/10 slower than what I did in the Red Bull. And again, I didn't think that was a bad lap or anything at all. And just by going by feeling, I just felt like the Red Bull was just so much more stable. I felt like I could really just stamp on the throttle without worrying, and just felt a lot more planted, whereas the Ferrari just definitely felt a lot looser and just a little bit more oversteery. Definitely just felt a lot more nervous when I was going on the power, and it just didn't feel as confident. But I was really just trying to take that out of my head and just focus on the driving, just trying to focus on perfecting these laps as much as we can. And no, this lap here I felt like was going pretty well. I didn't really feel like there was really many mistakes here right now. And go through here, yeah, doing that pretty nicely. Not much more I could have done there. I know we went out wide on my Red Bull lap, but that isn't going to gain you a huge amount of time. And overall, this lap, I'd say it was a pretty good 8 or 9 out of 10. No real issues here as we come through the last corner. So we're already 7/10 slower on the first lap. And coming through here, what's it going to be? It's an 18.7. That's half a second. So we've already lost over half a second, or 1 second already compared to Red Bull. You can see the difference in wear is already starting to happen from lap 2. So yeah, and you can see as we run through these more and more, the wear is slowly but surely starting to create a little bit of a difference. So if we stop on this lap, about 1% difference in tyre wear here, almost 2% on the rears. So as we come towards the end of lap 5, let's see what it's going to be like compared to the Red Bull. And you can see now there's actually a 2% difference between some of these tyres. So again, the longer the stint goes on, the more the exponential effect this will have. You can see another 2% difference. And you can see that's being reflected in the lap time, which we will have a little bit of a comparison of. I was probably, I think the whole stint was quite a few seconds slower than what I was doing in the Red Bull. So even in the space of 10 laps, you've lost 2 to 3 seconds in those 10 laps, which is quite a big margin overall. And you can see here now, gap is almost, or is 3% difference. And yeah, I think you can see where this is going. It definitely is not placebo. The Red Bull and Ferrari have quite a big difference in the tyre wear. And this is a test that I think an esports driver did of Barry Boromund. He tested all the cars and he actually did a full race of a 50%. And you can see the Ferrari is almost 7 seconds slower and can only do 12 laps on the softs, where the Red Bull can do an extra 2 laps on the soft. So losing 7 seconds in a 50% league race, that is quite a big margin. And no, if you're in esports, then you're pretty much last if that's going to be happening. And apparently this has been present in the game since F1 21, but not quite to this degree. So yeah, right now they are going to have to really focus on doing a big patch to fix this, because you can't really do esports unless this is fixed. And yeah, it's, yeah, I don't know, like in the tweets at the beginning of this video, I don't know whose job it is to test it, but I think it's the developer's job to make sure these things need to be tested. You can't just rely on beta testers doing it. This is something that, with esports online being such a huge thing, does need to be always tested. But we will see here 38%, 35% for the Red Bull. So yeah, 2 to 3% difference after 10 laps. And if we take a look at these lap times here, we are going to do a little bit of a side-by-side. You can see a fairly big difference in the lap times. For the end of the stint, it wasn't too bad, but at the beginning and the drop-off point, you are losing quite a bit of time between these two cars. Let me know what your thoughts are. What do you think about this? And I will be catching you very, very soon. Peace.